does not disappoint over here. Look at how pretty everything looks. So we're back at it again with another Build Biology. This time, our guest, he's a legend in drag racing. Absolute legend. He's an amazing fabricator. He's the most winning drift team in Formula Drift history right now. We'll just let him speak for himself. This is Steph Papadakis.
Hello. What's
Hey
up,
man,
Dan?
how are you?
I'm good. Yeah.
High fives.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah man, pleasure to have you on here. What are we standing next to right now?
So this is a 2019 Toyota Corolla hatchback. That's what it started life as. I mean, we've basically,
But Steph,
yeah.
it's 2018.
I know. Toyota had a couple of these pre-production cars. They gave one of the cars to our team to then build into a drift car. Normally it's front-wheel drive, but our specialty is rear-wheel drive conversions.
It looks amazing. So is this more of what we're gonna see from the factory? Or is this all custom wide body bumpers?
Well, this is a carbon fiber hood, but like the shape of that and the front bumper is actually factory. The roof line, even though this one's carbon fiber, the main modified parts are the fenders, the rockers, the rear quarter panel, and then we have a TRD aftermarket wing that they'll have available for the stock car.
What all is carbon, what is metal?
The doors are actually metal.
Really?
So because we built this car in such a tight time frame, 3.5 months, we had to pick our battles on what we would build composite. So like, for instance, the hood is all carbon, but what we do is when we build this car, we spot weld the stock hood, and we actually brought that down to Reese Millen's place, and he laid in and built us a carbon fiber hood using the stock metal hood as a mold. And then we go and bond that back on to the factory car.
That's incredible. Well, I know you just came off of a victory, so the debut is feeling pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah, it's so not in our wildest dreams that we thought we could start with a stock car in basically December and have a winning car by April.
In December.
yeah.
I'd be worried about testing at that point. Like let's see if we can get testing in December, but they got the car in December, assembled it, won the first round. That's incredible, man.
Yep. And some people will ask, like, why didn't Toyota just get you just the body, right? Why did they give you a whole car? Because the bodies are not available. They only had a couple of cars, and so that's how we always start with these.
What are these big boys?
Yeah, so Motegi Racing builds these for us. This is their new wheel, and they actually build these here in California, in Buena Park. They start with a forged center and machine it out to this cool mesh pattern.
Yeah.
And then they assemble it with the offset that we want, and then this crazy gold paint. A lot of the time you talk about body kits, right? And that's like the tuner market, but what we're doing here is we're actually creating whole new body panels. So it looks like an over fender, but the reality is like this quarter panel is one piece all the way from down here, all the way to up here. If you get close, you can actually see a seam. Yep.
Wow, yeah, I can see that here, but this is all integrated together.
It's all together. With these drift cars, they can get hit, and so we don't have to go to the body shop and fix them. We actually cut off the stock quarter panel, and it's kind of cut like this underneath, and this lays on top of the factory sheet metal, and it's got a few rivets that holds it on.
So this would be open under here?
Yes.
Wow.
Right.
Okay.
Yep. We cut these basically to the limit of what the rules allow.
Yeah.
And then we put carbon panels.
That's incredible. And the door still opens in the rear?
Yeah. So so this fender's all one piece here, and then it's got an over piece here that fits on the the door.
Okay.
And the doors are still steel, but we cut them all out. And this we do an aluminum panel here, so just so
it's really nice.
It looks nicer. Yeah.
Is that all bead rolled then?
Yep. Yeah. It's
That's
a really
cool.
thin piece of aluminum, bead rolled, and then powder coated.
That looks really nice. Let's move into the rear here, what you got going on in the boot. Now, how easy is this to take off in case of a crash? It looks like everything's pretty integrated, but it's also flexible.
Yeah, so most of the stuff zip tied.
Yeah.
Back in the days, we would use like Zeus's and all these like trick fasteners. You get hit and nothing lines up anymore.
Yeah.
So we do like more crazy brackets, and then we'll zip tie to that.
Take a look
again,
inside.
carbon fiber hatch here.
Wow.
Still with shocks though.
Oh, the shock's still supported.
So back here, I mean, some obvious stuff. Well, it's not that obvious maybe.
No, it's definitely not obvious.
That's the radiator.
Yeah.
So the radiator is mounted in the rear, and we try to get more weight in the rear for more rear grip, and then as low as possible for a lower center of gravity. It's all separated through like basically a rear firewall
Sure.
to keep the cooling system away, from the driver.
And that's almost directly where the back seats are.
Yeah, can't sit in the back anymore.
Yeah.
So the fuel cell is back here. This tank right here is for the cooling system. So this is where we fill the cooling system, and it constant bleeds. So the one line comes from the engine, from the highest point of the engine, and then the other line comes from the highest point of the radiator here.
Okay.
So it's always constant bleeding. This is the overflow for the cooling system. And this is the breather tank for the dry sump oiling system.
Gotcha.
And if you look close, you might see some
far
zip
back.
ties right here. Here's one holding on the
yeah.
rear bumper.
Gotcha. Yeah, you can see down in there all that tube work.
Oh, here's another zip tie. A couple of
Yeah.
them.
Even the taillight, yeah.
Yeah.
Reason for the radiator lying flat like that?
We want the radiator lying flat to get the lower center
Just
of gravity.
the lower center of gravity?
Yep.
And it's pulling air from the bottom then?
Correct. Like there's the hole in the bottom. Air comes from the bottom of the car, and it's a puller fan, and then it basically then brings all the air back here and then out these little vent holes and stuff. Yeah.
So, I mean, traditionally what I see is guys doing scoops from the top and coming down through the bottom instead of coming underneath the car. But, I mean, it's like a plane wing almost. So you want some to rush underneath the car as well.
These cars are drifting, and there's dirty air everywhere. Like we want to think we know what we're doing with aerodynamics. The fact of the matter is that unless you have all the smooth panels everywhere, it's just turbulent air all over the place.
Turbulent.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically for you, it's just more of a weight displacement.
Yeah.
So, and then let's see the big adjustment sway bar here.
Yeah, so we're out of space underneath. So we mounted the sway bar up here, and we have a few different holes for adjustment, and we can also change to different thickness sway bars. And if we want to get it out, we can actually, we push it out that little hole a little bit.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
It's here?
And then it'll actually come out.
Okay,
just like right
so
here.
you push it out through here and then weave it up.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Yep.
That's pretty cool. That's a slick setup. It's kind of difficult to see in here. It's pretty dark, but the bash bar is pretty nice as well. Well, see, he's got a little kink in it already.
Yeah, yeah.
Somebody put it on the wall, I guess. Let's take a look inside. Let's see what we can. So we've got this all ducted. This is where the radiator sits, and that's all aluminum as well.
Yes.
That's pretty cool. I like all the beadwork.
And if you look behind the driver's seat, you'll see his little Parker pumpers, like a helmet air pump.
Yeah.
So that's what that big tube pulls from the roof. If you look at the top, there's an aqueduct.
Oh yeah, aqueduct right here, and that's going to give him fresh air.
Yep.
That's cool.
And then behind the passenger seat is the nitrous bottle hiding down there.
Oh yeah, always got to sneak that nitrous in. And then what has changed up front here?
How about this? I say what's not changed. We have part of the stock dash.
Yeah.
That's it. Everything else
Just
is gone.
part of the stock
Yeah,
dash.
the pedals are gone, the air conditioning, the heater, everything else is gone, and we've replaced it with all racing components. Yeah, the whole pedal assembly. So we use a drive-by-wire pedal. So the pedal is actually just electronic. There's no actual throttle cable. That goes into the AEM Infinity ECU.
Yep.
And then the throttle body is also drive-by-wire. Everything's drive-by-wire.
Gotcha.
There's no cables anymore. And then the brake pedal runs off of 2 master cylinders. And then the driver can change the bias with a little knob that's on the center console over there.
That little black knob there.
Yep, exactly. And then standard clutch pedal.
Yeah.
So the whole steering column has been rebuilt, and we try to make it really stiff. We machine this tube, and we put a needle bearing in there,
Okay.
so it's all really low friction.
Yeah.
Because these steering wheels are flying around each
Yeah,
way,
yeah,
you know.
yeah.
So we want to make sure that the steering column is as little friction as possible.
Right.
And it's a really cool quick release. There's zero play. All the play that you see is
in the
no
wheel.
actual.
Yeah,
there's no
you
play.
can see when he's moving that little bit. I mean, that's
steering
that's
wheel's
all
moving
in the
too.
tire. So
Yeah, so there's no splines on this. It's actually like this
Oh,
trick.
wow.
Yeah, it's like a trick
I've never seen
wedge
that.
shape. The dash, let's turn this sucker on, and I can show you the keypad. So the way the electronics work, it's very modern. There's no relays, there's no fuses. Everything is through a thing called a Motec PDM, a power distribution module, and it's all solid state components. So back here.
I don't know. Have you ever been here before? You might regret telling me how to turn this on.
Nah, it's okay. Everybody can know. So this is like a master kill. This is the only thing that's an actual physical switch because we want to make sure that we can disconnect everything. So that turns the main, it basically hooks the battery up, right? So go ahead and press the ignition and then watch the dash.
Ooh, Papadaka's Racing snuck that one in there too.
This dash can log everything happening on the car.
Yeah.
So of course engine RPM and throttle and boost and all those things, but the PDMs, the ones that handle the power distribution, they'll tell you, you can log, oh, the fuel pump is at 12 amps.
Yeah.
Fuel pump 2 is also at 12 amps. The radiator fan is on.
Wow.
So you can look back at logs and you can see what all of your radiator fan and everything has been doing as far as like voltages and amps, and you can try to diagnose a problem before it happens.
Sure, yeah. Like if something seems weak, like, well, we better
Or if there was a
address
problem, you can go back and see hopefully what it
happened.
was. Yep. It's like the black box on the
this.
airplanes.
Yeah, exactly. The cockpit looks amazing. I just like a clean cockpit. Looks great. Let's work around under the hood. Let's see what we got in it.
Again with a little shock.
Yeah, that's nice. Just one finger lift.
So originally this car's front wheel drive, comes with a 4-cylinder engine. Now it's rear wheel drive, still with a 4-cylinder engine. And the question always is, how did you guys make it rear wheel drive?
Yeah.
The simple answer is we turn the engine 90 degrees and we add drivetrain to the rear, a transmission, drive shaft, and then a rear end and axles. The fabrication involved is we do custom engine mounts in the front.
And man, that just looks incredible.
Yeah, that's something that we machined at the shop.
Yeah.
And then if you sneak under the intake manifold there, you'll see another red motor plate engine mount. So what that does is it adapts our Toyota 4-cylinder engine to a small block Chevy bell housing, something like they use in NASCAR.
Yeah.
And then we can use the NASCAR type transmissions.
So what transmission is in this?
It's called G-Force GSR.
Oh, okay.
It's something. It's not for street. It's something that they use in like the NASCARs. In order to get all this stuff to fit, the tunnel and the firewall doesn't allow for the bell housing and the transmission to fit.
Sure.
So the rules allow all the cars to cut their firewall a little bit to allow the bell housing.
Yeah.
But we're not allowed to bring the engine rearward of the stock firewall.
Gotcha.
So that's one of the reasons we actually run the 4-cylinder engine is because a car that used to be front wheel drive is called a cab forward design. And the cab forward design, the firewall is really forward, right, to get all the occupants farther forward.
Sure.
So if you look at where the center line of the front axle is kind of about here, and the firewall is only 8 or 10 inches back from that. So most of the engine is actually in front of the front axle,
Right.
which for a race car you don't want that. You want your weight as far towards the center as you can.
So if you were to have, say, an inline 6, you'd be sticking way out to here, put a lot of front weight out there.
Yep, or a V8 or anything
V8,
like that.
Yeah.
Car wouldn't handle as well. So the little 4-cylinder motor that's really light, this engine weighs 220 pounds and maybe another 80 pounds for intake manifold and turbo and all that stuff. So the power that we're able to make for the weight, it's really good.
And what was this motor from factory?
This is, they call the Toyota 2ARFE, and it comes in like the late model Camry, RAV4, the Scion TC from 2014, 2015.
Okay.
It's all kinds of cars come with it in 2.5 liter and 2.7 liter versions.
And what are we sitting at now?
We're at 2.7 liter.
2.7 liter? And how much is the output?
We make 850 horsepower on just the turbo, and then we have 150 horsepower of nitrous on top of that, so it makes 1,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is incredible. That's really pushing it to the edge. You've had these in and out in record-breaking time, for as far as I'm concerned. Like, I've seen they popped the motor and then bang, they're back out on the grid again. So
yeah, so the limitation on these has been the head gaskets, trying to keep, we got crazy head studs and trick gaskets and everything, but we're actually starting to flex the cylinder head now, because we're reaching the limit of what just the castings can deal with.
Yeah.
So we always have a spare engine, and we have to be good at changing it, because that can happen a couple times per season.
And so what have you learned to help you get this engine out in a reasonable amount of time? I mean, because the time between practice and qualifying is not much. And the time between qualifying and top 32 is not much. Boom, you have an hour, maybe 2.
So the key is when you're designing all of the components, that they're easy to work on.
Yeah.
So everything can be worked on simultaneously. You can have 3 people under the hood. Someone can be pulling out the intercooler.
Yeah.
Someone can already be pulling off the exhaust system, and you can actually pull the header off from the head, and the whole turbo, wastegate, this whole assembly comes off as one modular piece.
Yeah.
Same thing with the intake manifold. You can unbolt it from the head, and the whole thing comes off as one piece.
Yeah.
And by the time that stuff's off, someone could be underneath the car pulling the transmission out, and then now, once you get the fluids out, the engine's already on the way out.
Sure. And then ready to go back in. So what size turbo are you running on this?
It's called a Borg-Warner EFR 8374, and we run these on the smaller tracks, like Long Beach, where we just were. But then the bigger tracks, like the big ovals, will run the 9174, which is their bigger version. So it has a little bit more lag, but we can make like another 100 horsepower. We try to adapt as much to what the driver wants. So Aasbo will say, hey, on this track, I just want as much response as I can get, and you don't need 1,000 horsepower. So we'll have a combination that'll give him more response. A big track where you're just on this bank for 10 seconds ripping it.
Yeah.
You don't need a bunch of response. You need 1,000 horsepower to keep the wheels spinning at 100 miles an hour. So depending on that application, we'll change it.
Wow. Just the setup itself up here looks incredible. Like the whole bash bar setup, and assume you have multiples?
No, would you just do the one,
Just the
and
one?
I'll show you how this is set up. So the rules for Formula Drift allow you to do whatever you want to the front of the car in front of the forward-most suspension component.
Yeah.
So we cut the car off at that point,
Yeah.
and we have a little tubular chassis.
So from right here.
Yep.
Just
So
gone.
the frame rail and everything is cut here,
Yeah.
and then we build what we consider like a strong, kind of triangulated substructure, like the main frame again.
Yeah.
And then you'll see the flanges, and then this is the crash bar. The struts that go farther forward, these are 1.5" 095.
Oh, wow.
And the big bar up in front is 1.5" 065. So it's a thinner wall.
Okay, yeah,
tubing,
this
all
one
chromoly.
Man, it's incredible work. We saw it perform. Yeah, I want to see underneath it. I'm really curious to see how you made everything rear-wheel drive, the suspension setup, what your knuckles are, everything. Man, it does not disappoint over here. Look at how pretty everything looks. That's working with a new car, and we were just talking off camera. He's powder coated everything. The whole chassis is powder coated.
Yeah, so we tear it down and we paint strip the whole chassis, but then once we're finished with all the fabrication, we have it powder coated. And we have a local powder coater that can actually turn it around in like 24 hours.
Let's talk business about the first things that I can see right now. Let's talk about the steering, because this is what we couldn't see before. Let's talk about the kit you have built for the angle.
Stock, this car's electric power steering, and it's a rear steer. We actually convert it to front steer, which means that the rack is in front of the, call it front axle.
Okay.
The steering arms are on the front.
So normally it's back here.
Yep, and then the steering arm would be on
the
this
back.
side of,
Okay.
of the ball joint.
Gotcha.
Yep, so we do front steer. This rack is actually out of a 98 Toyota Supra, late model Supra. We do custom control arms. These are all fabricated in-house.
What are they made of?
These are chromoly.
Chromoly?
Yep. You know,
Feel
this
it,
is the
so.
this is what everyone wants to see, right? They want to see it turn.
That's it. So,
Yep.
do you know the degree of angle you're getting out of this?
It's about 68 degrees.
68?
Yeah.
Man, it looks insane. Again, with more of the forklift look, I can see that here. It's directly straight out. And the tires look nice and flat too.
Yeah, it's actually limited a little bit while it's drooped out. If this thing's at ride height, it'll go, a few degrees more.
Sure, yeah.
And then the steering, all this, everything's custom, right? So this is a full billet spindle or upright that we design and machine in-house. And then the custom brake bracket, and then all the custom brakes. Like everything is all one-off.
What was the idea of moving everything forward to begin with? Was there even an attempt to try the other steering, or everything was just, we're going with the front?
This is like a 6th generation steering that we've evolved over a lot of the drift cars that we've built. And now the cars that we're building are all McPherson. McPherson means it's got, the strut that has the one mount at the top, and then the lower control arms just have 2 mounts down here. So once we know what geometry that we want, we just duplicate that on the next car, or we'll evolve it a little bit.
Yeah.
So actually the uprights, they used to be steel. On this car, they are aluminum, but it's the same bolt pattern everywhere.
Oh, gotcha.
Yep. And then we have a bolt-on. This is for use a Lexus IS350 hub.
Oh, okay.
Really reliable Toyota part.
So start to finish on this, how long does something like this take for you in the shop? This knuckle here, R&D included.
Call it a week.
A week?
Yeah. So within the shop, we can go from like paper napkin design all the way to like a final product. So we'll design it, I'll sketch it out, or we'll decide on what we want, go into the computer, CAD design it, computer design it, and then we can actually manufacture it in-house. So these struts are from RSR suspension. They're actually S14 style struts. So the bolt pattern and the length and everything is all S14 because there's so many parts available for that work really well. And then we designed the custom top pillow mount.
Wow, that is crazy.
And you can see the different holes, and that allows us to clock it differently so we can get different caster angles.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. What kind of brakes are we running?
These are all from StopTech. So they make the rotors and the calipers. But again, they don't make anything that bolts onto this. So we manufacture the hat for the rotor and then also the caliper bracket.
Okay, wow.
And we can pull all this stuff off so you can check it out later. Pull off a wheel for you.
That would be pretty cool to look at, yeah.
So this is our dry sump pan. And nobody makes dry sump stuff for this engine. It's such a rarely used engine. This is something that we've designed and built in-house as well.
It looks incredible. From the front wheel drive engine, now made it up to rear wheel drive. That looks really cool. Even the cross member here for holding the trans.
Yep.
That is nice, and the GSR fits pretty nice in here. I thought there'd be a little less room actually.
Well, so the rules allow you to cut a tunnel for the transmission.
Yeah.
So then we have some room for the transmission.
And that's all stainless?
Yes. Yeah. It's all stainless.
It goes back to an oval.
Yep.
And the preference to go to an oval is just the clearance?
Yeah, it's a clearance issue.
Carbon drive shaft?
Yep.
Man, that is nice. It's really huge.
If you check out our drive shaft loop, it's all integrated into the chassis. So it's it's a drive shaft loop and a exhaust mount.
So what's the rear end then?
So this is a late model Supra. So call it 98 Supra turbo. Rear end.
Super turbo. See,
so JZ80, yeah.
A lot of cars are still running Winner's quick change.
Yeah, this one is smaller, lightweight, and we just really like this rear end. It has more ground clearance. There's a lot of benefits from this. It takes longer to change the final drive, but we do most of our gearing changes in the transmission, not in the rear end.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Then we're looking at all the suspension parts back here, and it just looks like artwork.
Yeah, so we want to try to get as much travel as we can within the rules, and you're not allowed to cut any of this frame or anything like that. So everything is curved so it clears this once it's at bump travel. And this is stuff that we've designed and machined in-house. The trailing arm, the bracket, the whole upright. So all this stuff is one-off, designed and built specifically for this car.
That looks incredible. Yeah, and I noticed that when we were jacking it up that this has quite a bit of droop to it.
Yeah, and it's got a bunch of bump too. Like it'll tuck to like the wheel.
Wow. And this looks like a relatively small fuel cell.
Yeah, it's 8 gallons.
8 gallons?
Yep.
And what about consumption? How is that?
These guys will put fuel in it every pair of tires, which is about every 2 runs. And I think they put a gallon or 2 in it. It doesn't take a whole bunch.
Too much.
And then all the fuel pumps are inside the tank.
What pumps are they running?
We run the AEM 380 liter per hour pumps, 2 of them.
So on the scales, how did this weigh out? I mean, balance wise.
So it's 54% on the front.
Okay.
And then what was that, 46% on the rear?
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow. That's amazing for what was a front wheel drive car. Now, what axles do you use in this?
These are actually out of the box stock Toyota Supra axles.
They're that strong.
Yeah.
They're putting 1,000 horsepower down, but we see that all the time in a Supra.
Yeah, so we work with Toyota. It works actually really well. We have a pile of brand new rear ends. We got a pile of brand new axles, and then the hubs on the outside our Lexus IS 350, and the spline is the same as the Supra, but they bolt on. So we can build the billet aluminum upright and then bolt on a really robust Lexus
This
hub.
whole thing is just a crazy bastard child of all these Toyota sports cars that they've released, and you've figured out how to put all the pieces together in the new Corolla.
Yeah, so we have a bunch of custom parts in the car, but we try to find something that we can buy or get that is already made first.
Yeah. Where does the idea come from, though? I know you've run this in the past. You've done this for Tanner's car, which, in my opinion, has changed American drifting, being one of the first big VA cars with front-wheel drive to rear-wheel drive conversion. I mean, now it seems to be the norm.
Yeah, I've been doing this for over 20 years now, so you never know where you're going to be inspired. You know, we've built a lot of drag race cars in the past, done some road racing stuff, some Lucas off-road short course truck racing, obviously a lot of drifting the last 12 years. And then I'll go to, you never know when you're going to be inspired. It could be at a motorcycle event or something like that. And I like mechanical things. I get a bunch of ideas just from the internet.
Yeah.
You just Google things and just hit images, and just you never know when you're gonna get inspired. Maybe we could pull a wheel off, and you could check out some more of the brakes and stuff.
I would like to pull a wheel off and check that out if we can. Let's explain what we got going on. I can see you've made a mount up here for the top as well.
Yeah, so the way the rules are, you have to use the factory or have the shock in the factory location. So this is the stock boss that the stock shock bolts to. And then we made a little bracket, and it allows the pivot point to be in the stock location, which is how it's supposed to be factory.
Yeah.
So we make that little bracket, and this is a custom coilover setup that RSR makes for us.
And we see the dual caliper setup. Man, those are both massive.
They're massive, but they're actually really lightweight. So these are machined on like a crazy 5-axis CNC, and if you look, they're just pocketed all over.
Yeah.
And then the rotor is actually quite thin and really lightweight as well. These are designed for sprint cars.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Well, that's awesome, man. I'm glad we got to take a look at it. Very good work. I can't wait to see what you build next.
Yeah, we just go to more FD events and try to win as much as possible.
Yeah, well, you got a good start already by being first in the season right now. Just coming off of your debut with this new car and a win. So no better way to start that. And man, I really appreciate you coming by, checking this out. A drag race legend and now a drift legend. So I can't wait to see this thing again in Orlando, and hopefully you guys carry everything on.
Thanks, dude.
Thanks a lot, man. The rest of the 2018 season, these guys are going to be a huge threat. So keep up, follow along.